Hi guys, so today we have lesson 5. We'll be talking about our friend Plato. This time, the Republic. As you can see, it's kind of long over here. So, lucky you guys, I made a summary and explanation about all of this. But anyway, you have to um, answer the question uh, after watching the whole video because it's about the whole text over here, right? So let's go to the explanation. Before the explanation, we have the summary. So, The Republic by Plato, translated for our friend Benjamin Jowett, discusses various philosophical concepts through dialogues between Socrates and Glaucon. In Book 6 and 7, two main themes are explored: the divide line and the allegory of the cave. In the divided line, Plato presents a metaphorical line divided into unequal parts, representing the visible and intangible worlds. The visible world consists of images and shadows, while the intelligible world involves reasoning beyond hypotheses to grasp higher truths. The allegory of the cave illustrates the journey from ignorance to enlightenment. It depicts prisoners chained in a cave, mistaking shadow for reality. When one is freed and exposed to the light outside, initial discomfort is followed by a gradual understanding of true knowledge. So the allegory symbolizes the ascent of the soul from the world of appearances to the realm of true knowledge, culminating in the contemplation of the idea of good. Plato emphasizes the importance of philosophical education in leading individuals from darkness or enlightenment to enlightenment. He argues that true knowledge is not acquired externally but is inherent in the soul, needed only to be directed towards the light of truth. This contrasts with the belief that knowledge can be implanted like sight into blind eyes, highlighting the role of inner transformation and the pursuit of wisdom. Overall, Plato's philosophical dialogues in the Republic delve into the nature of reality, knowledge, and enlightenment, urging individuals to seek the truth beyond mere appearances and shadows, ultimately aiming for a deeper understanding of the good and essence of existence. So, the allegory of the cave. I don't know if you have watched, but I'm sure you did the movie Matrix. Matrix speaks about we live in two worlds, but one of them is the real world, and the other one is like Catherine or imagination or a cave. So we wake up. In other words, we wake up and suddenly we can see everything that, about the truth. This is in short words, this will be the allegory of the cave. If you don't remember about the film Matrix, please, I encourage you to watch it because it's Keanu Reeves over there. Now, but seriously, and you can see it. You please watch it. It's a very, very philosophical question over the whole movie from the beginning to the end. So now, the explanation. So Socrates uses the allegory of the cave to illustrate the journey of the soul from ignorance to enlightenment. This is basically the summary. The prisoner in the cave represent individuals who are trapped in a world of ignorance, only able to perceive shadows and illusions. When one of the prisoners is freed and exposed to the light outside the cave, he initially struggles and is dazzled by the brightness of the sun, remember, representing the discomfort and challenges that come with seeking knowledge and truth. Socrates, in this part, sorry, I want to talk about metrics again. In this part, when people when the prisoner go to outside and the sun burns his eyes, let's say, I'm sorry guys, but I will spoil the movie a little. Neo, the character who is portrayed by Keanu Reeves, Neo is very confused because the world that he knows from the moment when he was born to that moment, it was all lies. And is usually when people know people know about something, thinking all the time it was a thing, but suddenly it's not a thing, it was a lie. People feel burned, confused, can't believe it. They can't believe, oh no, I was lied. My whole life was a lie. So that burns. And that represents the sun burning the eyes, sorry. Burning or eyes or the prisoner eyes. So it's a metaphor. Well, let's continue. Socrates explains that the soul must use hypotheses and images as a starting point to understand the intelligent world. I agree about this because sometimes words aren't enough to express this or express the truth. Gradually ascending to higher truth through dialectic reasoning. So this process involves moving beyond mere opinion and hypothesis to grasp the first principle that govern the realm of knowledge and being. Furthermore, Socrates emphasizes the importance of philosophical education in guiding individuals toward the truth and the good. He argues that true philosophers who have seen the light of knowledge have a duty to return to the cave and share their insight with others. Right. So this part is kinda difficult, especially for the true philosopher. Why? Because true philosophers, let's say they are teachers. Yeah. So teachers, what do teachers do? Teachers transmit knowledge. Teachers teach, right? So sometimes it's difficult to be a teacher, I mean, transmitting the knowledge, because there are students that don't want that knowledge, don't believe that knowledge. So in this case, I can see, and it's kind of difficult to transmit. the real knowledge and that student could see the light of knowledge. Of course, it's not a problem to transmit knowledge, but sometimes the receiver, I mean the student in this case, the receiver of knowledge, could take or not take. In this part, sorry guys, I will spoil again. He remembers the part when Morpheus portrayed the character portrayed by Lawrence Fishburne in the movie Matrix. He offers Neo two pills: the pills of the true, the knowledge of the truth, or the pills of staying by you know. So of course he chose the truth. So this is what I'm trying to say right now about teachers offering knowledge to students. Some student could take, some some student couldn't take. Again, by compelling the best mind to govern a little society, the state can achieve through virtue and wisdom, rather than being driven by selfish ambitions, and power struggles. Ultimately, Socrates suggests that the rulers of the state should be individuals who are not only wise in political matters, but also possess a deeper understanding, of truth and virtue. By cultivating a ruling class of philosophers, kings who prioritize the common good over personal gain, a well-ordered and harmonious society can be established by governance guided by wisdom and justice. Oh, this is kinda fantasy, but if we have faith, we have everything. So this is very funny, but I'm sure you will understand with this meme. He said my professor tried to explain Plato's cave allegory with memes. Stage of the allegory. Memes. Stage 1, prisoner in the cave. There are people who live in ignorance. Stage 2, prisoner who escapes. A person who wants to know more. Stage 3, prisoner escapes the cave and is dazzled by the light. Here is the process simulating the greatest truth. Can you see this? And 4, sadly we can't see the whole sentence, but we can infer people who have achieved truth. Then finally, free man returns to free other prisoners. Here, communicates knowledge to others. Very funny, isn't it? So we have another video and another point of view, but basically it's the same what I was talking to you guys, and I would like you to watch that video and then don't forget to answer the question in the forum, right?
Plato's allegory of the cave is arguably the most famous philosophical story ever produced. In this video, we're going to go through the actual text of Plato's allegory of the cave and explore two popular interpretations that are sure to help you write that philosophy paper coming up. Plato starts by asking us to imagine, unsurprisingly, a cave. And in this cave exists humans who have lived there ever since they've been born. They've been chained up so that they could only see a wall, and that wall is all they've been able to see for their entire lives. But behind them, and unbeknownst to them, is a fire that shines a light on the wall that they're looking at. And also behind them are people who carry statues between the prisoners and the fire, so that shadows appear in front of the prisoners. Also imagine then that there are people alongside the wall carrying multifarious artifacts that project above it statues of people and other animals, made of stone, wood, and every material. So all these prisoners could see for their entire lives are these shadows of different statues. Now, if you grew up in the cave and had no knowledge of the outside world or anything but the shadows, what would those shadows mean to you? All in all then, what the prisoners would take for true reality is nothing other than the shadows of those artifacts. The shadows of the statues that represent real things are all they really know. That is their life. But what if one of the prisoners escaped and left the cave? Well, the first thing that would happen would probably be a lot of pain. After all, you're coming from a life growing up in the dark cave to this new shining light coming from the sun. It wouldn't be surprising if someone was so hurt by that intense light that they wanted to run back into the cave. After all, he could see all these great new things, all these real entities behind the shadows. Instead of seeing a shadow of a cat, for instance, now he would see the cat and be amazed that this was the true reality behind it all. And after witnessing all these new things in the outside world, he would finally see the sun and recognize its importance. He would already be able to conclude about it that it provides the seasons and the years, governs everything in the visible world, and is in some way the cause of all the things that he and his fellows used to see. So if you're paying attention, Plato has kinda set up a hierarchy of sources. The lowest form of reality was the shadows, as they were only representations of the real things. Above that, we actually have those real things, like people, trees, animals, that sort of thing. And highest above all is the sun, which is the cause of all of this. Let's start with the prisoners. Those prisoners stuck in the cave looking at shadows and believing that to be true reality? Well, I got bad news for you. That's us. To Plato, we're like those prisoners seeing things with our eyes and senses and believing that that's that. To understand why, we need to talk about Plato's theory of forms, as it's the most respected interpretation of the allegory of the cave. You're alive in this world right now, at least I hope you are. Look around you right now. Visually identify something like a pencil or a coffee cup. You may say, yep, that's a pencil, and leave it at that. But there's so many variations on pencils. I mean, you got mechanical, wooden, those bougie Blackwing pencils, and then these pencils change depending on how you use them. But what is the pencil? Whatever the true pencil is, it must be unchanging, perfect, and absolute. Or as Plato would call it, it would be the form of pencil. For example, we see many trees in our lives, but for Plato, these are all just phenomena subject to change and variation, whereas the ultimate, unchanging tree would be the form of tree. One way to think about the theory of forms is to think of a blueprint for a product, and the multiple products that come about as a result of that blueprint. The blueprint is perfect, with precise measurements and everything, whereas each product created from the blueprint will have tiny microscopic variations here and there. Go to Walmart and look at a standard coffee mug. There was a perfect, unchanging blueprint for this mug, describing size and whatnot. But take a closer look at each of those coffee mugs and you'll find something that makes them different. Maybe one has a chip, maybe a black spot, maybe a little dust. So it is with the world of forms and the world of phenomenon. The world of forms, like the blueprint, contain the one true, unchanging, perfect source, and the phenomenon are the imperfect, changing products of that perfect, unchanging source. So we're the prisoners, believing these phenomena or shadows to be the true reality. But through education and philosophizing, we can discover these forms or these true unchanging sources behind the phenomenon. Therefore, the allegory of the cave is not about education in general. It's about a specific education, an education that leads to the discovery of the forms. Let's say you disagree with Plato and his theory of forms, but find yourself more in line with another philosophy, a philosophy that's able to change the way you look at almost everything. If that's the case, then the allegory of the cave can be a call to learn philosophy in general. Not to discover the forms, but to discover other theories and thoughts that change how you look at things from now on. If your professor is strict, it'd be best to just talk about how the allegory of the cave is all about Plato's theory of forms. But if your professor is more open-minded, then I'd say mention both the theory of forms and your own philosophical interpretation. Because maybe the reason why Plato's cave hasn't been very specifically interpreted is because it could apply to so many situations. I felt like I was the prisoner in the cave before I tried the Popeye's chicken sandwich, and now I have become enlightened.